Liora Hemsley arrived in Tunisia expecting sunshine and peace. But Nassim Zeraoui had already woven a digital trap around her without ever showing his real face. As Dr. Selene Moradi uncovers the hidden clues buried inside Liora's hacked devices, Omar Lahlou secretly watches the operation he once escaped spiral into something far more dangerous. Captain Idris Khelifi races against time, piecing together a trail that vanishes inside the Medina like smoke. Every step these characters take pulls them deeper into a web of deception designed to swallow its victims whole. And with each revelation, the truth becomes more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Liora Hemsley stepped off the plane in Tunisia, the kind of excitement that only a solo traveler understands. She felt free, unbothered, and unstoppable. The warm air touched her face as she walked through the airport, convinced this trip would heal her from months of stress. She had planned the vacation carefully, choosing a quiet hotel near the coast, imagining long walks, bright sunsets, and peaceful nights. What she didn't know was that her journey had been watched long before she even arrived. Someone she had trusted online had already mapped out her entire trip without her ever realizing it. For months, she had been chatting with a man named Nassim. He seemed perfect, kind, supportive, always complimenting her photography and telling her she deserved to see the world. His messages felt natural, almost comforting. Liora shared everything with him: her travel plans, her favorite places, the exact day she would fly, even the hotel she would stay in. She believed she was sharing these details with a friend, but every detail she typed became a piece of information stored, studied, and passed through hidden digital channels she had never heard of as she walked out of the airport. Liora snapped pictures of the landscape, unaware that someone else was taking pictures of her at the same time. A man standing near the taxi line lifted his phone, captured her face, and sent it to a private group chat. Her arrival had been confirmed. The operation had officially begun. Liora reached her hotel, impressed by its colorful design and lively atmosphere. She checked in, took a warm shower, and spent the evening exploring the surrounding area. Tourists laughed on the streets, kids bought ice cream, and vendors called out to customers. To her, it felt like the perfect environment to reset her mind and enjoy life again. She had no idea that while she admired the beauty around her, someone was tracking her location through the free hotel Wi-Fi she just connected to. Using data she had unknowingly exposed through insecure links sent by Nassim. The next morning, Liora woke early and walked to the beach. The sun reflected on the waves, creating a soft glow that made her feel peaceful. She took photos for her travel blog, happy to update her followers. But at that exact moment, software installed on her phone through a harmless-looking link sent by Nassim activated again. Her new photos uploaded automatically to a server. Her real-time location was logged. Her online activity was mirrored onto a separate device. Every step she took was being analyzed by people she didn't even know existed. Still, nothing seemed strange to her. Tunisia felt safe. Locals were friendly. The streets were welcoming. Even when she noticed a man lingering behind her at a souvenir shop, she didn't think much of it. Tourists often attracted attention. She continued her walk, searching for cute cafes and hidden corners for photography. That afternoon, she planned to meet Nassim for the first time. He had messaged her saying he wanted to take her to a beautiful viewpoint only locals knew about. She felt a rush of excitement reading his message, imagining a romantic afternoon in a foreign country. She had no idea that the person behind the screen was not a single man at all, but a rotating team of scammers working in shifts, communicating with her from different devices. As the day passed, Liora noticed her phone acting unusual. Apps closed on their own, the battery drained faster, and her screen occasionally froze. She brushed it off as normal travel use. But behind the scenes, the scammers were downloading her contacts, scanning her emails, and preparing the next steps. That evening, Liora returned to her hotel with plans to rest before meeting Nassim the next day. She sat on her balcony, watching the quiet street below, feeling lucky to be there. But a car idled nearby much longer than normal. Its tinted windows faced her balcony. Inside were two members of the network confirming her room location. Ensuring everything was ready, Liora ended her night feeling happy, unaware that she had already been targeted, tracked, and marked. her peaceful vacation had transformed into something far darker. And every person involved was waiting for the perfect moment to move. She believed tomorrow would bring adventure, connection, and beauty. Instead, it would pull her into the center of a nightmare crafted long before she ever set foot in Tunisia. Nassim Zeraoui was nothing more than a carefully designed illusion. But to Liora, he felt real, trustworthy, and warm. Every message he sent carried the tone of someone who cared, someone who understood her life and her dreams. His profile looked authentic, filled with photos of a handsome Tunisian man posing near beaches, cafes, and cultural spots. But behind that perfectly crafted image were people she would never meet. People who studied human behavior like scientists and manipulated emotions like a daily routine. They were experts at creating the illusion of love without ever revealing their true identities. The digital world they lived in was hidden from ordinary users. It wasn't the dark web people imagined, but a secret network built through layers of encryption and stolen devices. When someone like Liora responded to a message, it triggered a small alert in their system. When she continued chatting daily, she was categorized, analyzed, and assigned to a handler. The moment she shared personal details, her life became an open book to them. And when she booked her trip to Tunisia, the operation around her intensified without her knowing. The real people behind Nassim worked like a hive. Each scammer had specific responsibilities. One handled emotional attachment. Another gathered personal information. A third crafted travel suggestions to control her movement. Everything was calculated with precision. They weren't just after her money. They were after her identity, her access, her digital footprint. Liora's openness made their job easy. She trusted too quickly, and they exploited it with frightening speed. While she believed Nassim was excited to meet her, the scammers behind the account were preparing something more advanced. They monitored her arrival through real-time airport footage accessed by a corrupted security guard, collaborated with them. They followed her social media activity, especially her stories and posts that revealed her exact location. Every check-in she made, every photo with geotags, every update to her blog fed into their system. They treated her data like a map, each detail guiding them closer to the moment they hoped to strike. The handler assigned to Liora, a man known only to the group as Seven, took extra interest in her case. She wasn't like the usual victims. She traveled alone, rarely checked in with family, and posted freely about her journey. She presented a rare opportunity, one that could make the group a large amount of money fast. Seven studied her messages and digital behavior, forming a psychological profile to understand her weaknesses. He noticed she responded well to emotional support and gentle encouragement. So the messages from Nassim became more affectionate, more caring, more personal. Meanwhile, other members of the network monitored Liora's movements physically. They blended into crowded markets, tourist spots, and sandy streets, acting like normal locals or travelers. They were trained to be unnoticed, to appear harmless. Their job was simple: keep eyes on Liora without being detected. When she left her hotel for breakfast, one of them followed from a distance. When she shopped for souvenirs, another member observed her spending habits. They watched her laugh, take pictures, and enjoy her trip, all while preparing to take her life in a direction she never expected. What made the network even more dangerous was the technology they used. The link they sent her days earlier, a simple photo Nassim claimed to have taken at a scenic spot, contained a hidden tracking tool. Once she had clicked it, her phone became fully exposed. Her camera, microphone, and location functions were accessible to them. They could see her gallery, her contacts, her banking apps, even her private notes. While Liora enjoyed her peaceful vacation, scammers were deep inside her digital world, preparing to use every part of her identity. The group had done this before, but Liora's case felt different. She trusted quickly. She responded warmly. She believed in the connection she thought she had with Nassim. She felt excited, not fearful. That made her easier to manipulate. It also made the scammers feel overconfident. As Liora slept that night, the decision was finalized. The next day would be the moment they would shift the operation from digital to physical. The real plan would begin when she stepped outside her hotel the following morning. And the scammers behind Nassim were ready for a move that would change the course of her entire trip forever. The third day of Liora's trip began with the same calm beauty she had been enjoying since she arrived. The sky was clear, the city was waking up slowly, and the historic Medina seemed like the perfect place to spend her morning. She wanted to capture photos for her blog, hoping to share the vibrant colors, narrow alleys, and lively market life with her followers. She had no idea that this peaceful day would become the turning point of her entire journey. The moment where everything that had been happening behind the scenes would finally begin to surface. As she walked toward the Medina, everything felt warm and inviting. Vendors arranged their stands, children ran between the stalls, and tourists moved with curiosity, taking in the rich atmosphere. But among the crowd was a shadow she had noticed before. A man lingering near a corner, pretending to look at handmade crafts. His clothes were ordinary, his posture relaxed, but something about him felt strangely familiar. Liora brushed away the thought, assuming he was just another tourist exploring the same area. She didn't realize he was a tracker assigned specifically to her, watching every step she took. Inside the Medina, the maze-like alleys twisted and turned in unpredictable ways. Liora loved it. She felt lost in the best possible sense, walking deeper into the heart of the market. She photographed spices piled in colorful mounds, hand-woven rugs, and bright ceramics that reflected the sunlight beautifully. Everything seemed fascinating, full of life. But with each turn she made, the man behind her adjusted his path, ensuring he stayed close enough to watch her, but far enough not to be noticed. What made the situation more dangerous was the system running silently on her phone. It sent constant updates of her location to the scammers, drawing a digital trail that showed exactly which alley she was in, which shop she entered, and where she stopped to take photos. Even the angle of her selfies revealed the surroundings, helping the watchers position themselves more precisely. Liora enjoyed her time unaware that she was being monitored from both the ground and the digital world. As she explored deeper into the Medina, the crowd thinned. Shops became quieter, the pathways narrower. It was the kind of place where tourists often wandered without worry. But for someone being targeted, it offered the perfect environment for a calculated move. Liora paused near a small shop selling handcrafted jewelry, admiring a necklace shaped like a crescent moon. The shopkeeper smiled at her, trying to get her attention. But she became distracted when she noticed movement in the reflection of a glass display. Someone behind her stepped back quickly, as if avoiding being seen. A sudden sense of unease ran through her, but she tried to ignore it. She moved to another part of the alley, hoping the feeling would fade. It didn't. The air felt heavier. The streets felt quieter. The comforting sounds of the main market had grown distant. She realized she had wandered too far from the busy area without noticing. Her phone vibrated with a message from Nassim, telling her about a beautiful viewpoint nearby and guiding her. Through the Medina with instructions that seemed oddly precise, she followed them, trusting he wanted her to see something special. The closer she got to the location he described, the more isolated the area became. High walls blocked the sunlight, and only a few doors lined the path. She walked down a narrow lane where even the usual street noise disappeared. Her steps echoed softly, the quietness making her heartbeat feel louder. She didn't notice the moment when the man following her disappeared behind her, quickly signaling others who had been waiting nearby. She was exactly where they needed her to be. When Liora turned a corner, everything changed. Someone stepped into the path behind her, and another stayed at the entrance of the lane. She was trapped without realizing it. Her phone suddenly shut off, remotely disabled through the spyware she had unknowingly installed. Panic started creeping into her chest, but she didn't have time to react. A sharp, overwhelming force hit her senses all at once, and the world around her went dark. Hours passed before anyone noticed she was missing. Tourists came and went, vendors continued their routines, and the Medina returned to its usual rhythm. No one saw what happened. No one knew she had vanished between those narrow walls. Meanwhile, the scammers worked quickly. They accessed her accounts without resistance, sending messages to her friends claiming she was extending her stay. They used her identity to request emergency loans, transfer money, and access digital systems she never imagined could be stolen. But far away, a man who had once been part of the same network, Omar Lahlou. noticed her profile appear in the group's database. Something about it felt wrong. The moment he saw her name listed under an operation category he knew all too well, he sensed the danger. Without revealing who he was, he sent an anonymous message to the authorities. It was the first spark, a single warning that would eventually uncover the truth behind her disappearance. Liora had vanished inside the Medina as if the city had swallowed her whole, and the world remained unaware of the nightmare she had just entered. Captain Idris. Khelifi received the anonymous message just after sunrise. It contained only a few chilling lines, a location pin, and a single warning that a foreign traveler had been taken by a sophisticated online crime network. Most tips like these turned out to be false, but something about this message felt different. It came from someone who clearly understood the structure of the group, someone who had seen their operations from the inside. Idris knew instantly that time was the enemy. When tourists vanished, hours not days decided their fate. He alerted his team and contacted international authorities. That's when Dr. Selene Moradi entered the picture. She worked in the UK cyber fraud division and had been investigating an unusual pattern of identity theft cases tied to travelers. When she saw Liora's name, her heart dropped. She remembered receiving a suspicious report about Liora's email being accessed in multiple countries at the same time. Now everything connected: the compromised phone, the location updates, the drained accounts. Selene immediately joined the investigation, knowing the window to save Liora was closing fast. The message they received from the anonymous source Omar, though neither of them knew his name, yet contained a second clue. A list of usernames used by the fraud network. One of them matched the digital footprint of Nassim Zeraoui, the same profile Liora had been communicating with for months. Selene recognized the pattern instantly. This wasn't a simple romance scam. It was a fully organized operation, using technology, surveillance, and psychological manipulation to target travelers who were alone and easy to isolate. The more Selene traced the data, the darker the picture became. She saw how Liora had been monitored from the moment she clicked the infected link. Even her hotel Wi-Fi logins appeared on the criminal server. Every online action she took, photos, uploaded, messages sent, locations tagged, had been mirrored to a controlling device. Selene quickly pulled every digital trace she could find. She reconstructed the timeline of the crime with terrifying clarity. Liora didn't disappear by accident. She was intentionally guided to an isolated area of the Medina where the group knew they could take her without witnesses. Meanwhile, Idris and his local team followed the physical trail. They interviewed shopkeepers, reviewed surveillance footage, and walked the exact path Liora had taken through the Medina. Most cameras in the older streets were outdated, but Idris refused to give up. He pieced together fragments of footage from nearby shops and finally found one. Crucial frame: a blurry image of Liora turning into a narrow alley that wasn't on any tourist map. Behind her, two men followed closely. That was enough to confirm the abduction. Selene and Idris worked together non-stop, combining digital forensics with ground investigation. They noticed a strange pattern. The criminals used abandoned properties to hide victims, temporarily before transferring them elsewhere. Idris directed his team to check every known location linked to prior scam activities. One building on the outskirts of Tunis stood out. It had no registered owner, no utilities, and no activity on paper. Yet satellite data recently picked up movement around it. Idris decided it was the place. They approached the rundown building silently, aware that a mistake could cost Liora her life. It looked empty from the outside: broken windows, faded paint, a rusted gate butt under the surface. It held a world of digital crime. Idris signaled his team, and the raid began. They broke into the structure and discovered rows of computers, stolen phones, and identity lists spread across long tables. The walls were covered with handwritten notes about victims from different countries. Dozens of digital profiles were active on the screens. Liora's name glowed at the top of one of them. As the officers searched deeper inside, they heard faint movement coming from behind a locked metal door. They forced it open. In the dim room, with barely any light, they found Liora shaken, exhausted, and terrified, but alive. She was bound to a chair, her phone dismantled on a small table beside her, and multiple documents with her information scattered around. The group had been preparing the final stage of the operation, the one she may not have survived. Liora was rushed out quickly while the criminals inside attempted to escape. Some were caught, others fled into back alleys, but Idris didn't stop. He collected every drive, every device, every notebook. The more evidence he found, the clearer it became that this was not just a local crime. It was an international network. It's capable of destroying lives without ever being seen. When Liora finally opened her eyes outside the building, the sunlight felt unreal. She had been saved, but the danger that surrounded her was bigger than she imagined. And as the investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a truth shocking enough to change everything they thought they knew about online relationships. Digital footprints and the invisible hunters who prey on the unsuspecting. The rescue was only the beginning. The real battle was about to unfold. Liora returned to London with the world moving around her as if nothing had happened. Yet inside, she felt like she was standing in the middle of a storm. The investigation did not end with her rescue. If anything, it had only begun. The crime network that had targeted her was far more advanced than anyone had imagined. And now multiple agencies across different countries were trying to understand how deep its roots went. What started as a simple vacation had exposed a global system built on deception, technology, and emotional manipulation. And Liora's escape became the key to unlocking the truth. Dr. Selene. Moradi began piecing together everything recovered from the abandoned building. Hard drives filled with stolen identities, encrypted messages between members, and logs of victims' movements were now being analyzed line by line. The scale was overwhelming. Dozens of victims from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East had been targeted the same way Liora had, through online. Relationships that felt real, but were engineered from the start. Some had lost their life savings. Some had disappeared. Others had no idea they were being watched until it was too late. Liora's case was one of the few where intervention came at the right moment. But the biggest shock came not from the files, but from the anonymous source who had broken the silence. After days of silence, Idris and Selene received another encrypted message. This time, the sender revealed himself as Omar Lahlou, former scammer who had helped save Liora's life. He decided to come forward because he couldn't watch another innocent traveler fall victim to the organization he once belonged to. His information would blow the investigation wide open. Omar explained how the group operated like a corporate machine. Every scammer had a role: building fake profiles, tracking victims, hacking devices, studying social media behavior, even predicting emotional responses. The criminals didn't chase random targets. They used software to scan online posts for people traveling alone. People posting emotional content, people looking for companionship. The moment someone fit their criteria, they were assigned to a handler, just like Liora had been. Everything from the timing of the messages to the fake, romantic backstory was crafted using psychological data collected from hundreds of previous conversations. What shocked investigators most was how Liora's identity had been used even while she was missing. Her bank accounts were accessed. Credit applications were filed in her name. Digital assets connected to her email were being transferred. In just 2 days, the group attempted to rebuild an entire identity under her name, one they planned to use for more scams around the world. Her disappearance was just one part of a larger cycle, and she had narrowly escaped becoming another untraceable statistic. Meanwhile, the public began to learn parts of the story. International news outlets reported the raid in Tunisia, revealing that a major network had been exposed due to one victim's disappearance. Travelers everywhere felt a wave of fear as authorities warned against oversharing online, especially while traveling alone. The story spread across social media, turning Liora into a symbol of survival, though she struggled to accept that role. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had looked into the darkest side of digital life and barely made it out. Omar's testimony allowed Selene and Idris to track the organization across borders. They discovered similar setups in Morocco, Turkey, Spain, and even parts of Eastern Europe. The group operated like a spiderweb, cutting one thread only, revealed more hiding in the shadows. But now, for the first time, investigators had enough evidence to dismantle a significant part of the system. Arrests were made, digital servers were seized, accounts were shut down, and victims were contacted with warnings. As for Liora, she tried to rebuild her life slowly. The trauma lingered. The fear of being watched followed her into everyday routines, and trust became something she questioned deeply. But she also found strength in knowing her story stopped the network from hurting others. Without her case, the operation might have continued for years unnoticed. Her solo trip to Tunisia had turned into a nightmare. It had also exposed one of the largest romance scam systems the world had ever seen. The unimaginable had happened not because she made a mistake, but because a hidden digital world preyed on people searching for connection. And although the criminals operated through screens, the danger they created was painfully real. Liora's story became a powerful warning shared across the world, in an age where love can begin online. Danger can too end. Sometimes the person typing the kindest words is the one holding the darkest intentions.